In this lesson, you're going to learn how waves shape the coastline. Waves work non-stop, night and day, year after year, shaping the coastline. This is what they do. Firstly, waves erode the coast. They wear away the rocks of cliffs. Remember, it's destructive waves that are doing this. The second thing that they do is they carry or transport this eroded material away from where they eroded it from. Lastly, the waves then deposit this eroded material in sheltered areas where there is low energy. Remember, it's constructive waves that deposit material on the beach. Constructive waves have a stronger swash than a backwash. Okay, let's start with erosion. There are 4 types of erosion: hydraulic action, abrasion, attrition, and solution. I really recommend that you watch the other video on Show My Homework from Time for Geography, which does a great job at explaining these 4 processes. Okay, the first process is called hydraulic action. And hydraulic action is when huge, powerful waves lash at the cliffs and they force air under high pressure into the cliff. The pressure of the compressed air weakens the rock and forces it to break up. And you can see on the diagram here, you've got cracks in the cliff and then the water pushing air into the cracks in the cliff. And it's almost like you're pumping up a bicycle tyre. And if you pump it and pump it and pump it, the air pressure gets higher and higher and higher. And if you keep on pumping, eventually the tyre is going to break. So the same thing is happening here. It pushes air in, forces it under pressure, and it causes cracks. That's hydraulic action. The second type of erosion is called abrasion. This is when the sea hurls pebbles and sands against the base of the cliff, and it chips and grinds it down. It's almost like the action of sandpaper against the side of the cliff, sanding the cliff down and rubbing it away with the small, tiny pebbles and pieces of sand which are contained in the water, contained in the waves. The third type of erosion is called attrition. And this is when the rocks and stones which are in the sea and which have been eroded, they start to bump against each other. And as they bump against each other, they chip little pieces off of each other and they become more and more rounded. So they start as angular rocks, and then as they chip pieces off, they become more rounded. That's attrition. The fourth type of erosion is called corrosion or solution. And this is when the seawater reacts with the rocks and they actually just dissolve into the sea. Like when you pour salt into hot water and the salt starts to dissolve into the water, the same thing happens with the rocks. The sea can be slightly acidic and it will dissolve some of the rocks. Transportation is when the waves carry eroded material away from where they've eroded it from. Some is carried right out to sea, but a lot is carried along the coastline like this. Now on this diagram you can see we've got these red arrows and they're showing the direction of the waves hitting the beach. Now we already know that waves are caused by the wind. Well, the wind usually blows the waves so that they hit the beach at an angle. And here you can see these red arrows are showing that the waves are hitting the beach at an angle. This means that the swash carries material up the beach at an angle. And here's our piece of material being carried up the beach by the swash. Backwash and gravity cause that material to go back down the beach in a straight line with the backwash. Then the same material gets hit by the next wave, which carries it up the beach at an angle in the same direction as the waves. And the backwash then brings it back down in a straight line. In this way, material slowly zigzags along the coastline, and hundreds of thousands of tons of pebbles and material get moved along our coastline like this every single year. This movement is called Longshore Drift. Finally, when waves are continually carrying material on and off the land, when they carry more material onto the land than off the land, a beach is formed. And here we can see an example of a perfect beach, because beaches form on sheltered areas where low, flat, constructive waves with a strong swash and a weak backwash carry material up the beach and leave it there to form a beach. Most beaches are formed of sand, but some are made of small pebbles too, and that's called shingle. In our next lesson, we're going to be looking at the landforms that are created by waves. Before we do that lesson, there are 10 questions on Show My Homework which you need to complete to show your understanding of the processes we have at the coastline.